Welcome back to Survive and Thrive. I'm Nathan Hurd, Chief Growth Officer with the Oxford Club. Today, I'm going to unpack an incredibly simple, important, and underutilized concept. This concept will cost you tremendously if not implemented correctly. And it came up because last week, if you recall, I asked a question. The question was this: if we fast forward to the end of this year and we're looking back and you had not achieved the level of success financially that you hoped for, what do you think the reason for that would be? And the caveat, if you read it, was that it had to be something within our control, right? We can affect change much more directly on things within our control. There was a theme that came up over and over and over. And ironically, it's one of the cornerstones of the investment philosophy at the club. And I'm always surprised when I talk to and meet with members how this consistently is something that they oftentimes fail to do consistently or correctly. And it, again, will cost you tremendously. So I'm going to start today with a bold claim, but I'll explain what I mean. The claim is you should never decide when to sell an investment you own. You see, many investors rely on themselves to determine when to get out of an investment. But research consistently shows that investors tend towards something called loss aversion. They feel the pain of losing money much more deeply than the feeling of gaining. That makes us hold on to losing trades for far too long. You know, this hope that we have that things will turn around, but also sell winners too soon, hoping to keep the good news from turning into bad news. I'll take this one step further. Researchers from the University of Chicago, Carnegie Mellon, and MIT conducted a study of over 4 million trades in over 800 institutional portfolios from 2000 to 2016. These are the pros, right? But here was a quote from those findings. There was, quote, clear evidence of skill in buying, but they being the pros, they didn't beat randomized selling strategies. Literally, even the pros, quote unquote, would have underperformed chimps picking at random when to sell. So think of that just for a second. People who buy and sell stocks for a living aren't just unskilled when it comes to selling. They are literally the inverse of skilled. The simple truth is this: there is far more research and far more cognitive resource put into the buying of stocks and or other investments than the selling. The research study that I just described called this asymmetric allocation of cognitive resources. Combine that with loss aversion, and our ability to trust ourselves when to sell stocks looks bleak. And if you think about this, you know, there's no shortage of research and information on what companies are doing, when to buy into companies, or how to make those decisions. There's a heck of a lot less research or information available on when to sell. So what do? Well, as you may know, the Oxford Club believes that you should have a stop loss strategy for every single investment you make, no matter what. Whether this is a trailing stop, a stop loss, rebalancing approach, or some other specific criteria, there should not be a single trade, a single investment in your portfolio that does not have a stop loss directly attached to it. And by stop loss, this kind of general concept, what I mean is there should be a set of circumstances where your position will automatically be sold in your brokerage account, already set up. That's ideal. If not, at the very least, you should have a mental commitment to some other protocol that you will not question if it comes to pass. For example, Alexander Green has a few other approaches in his all-store portfolio, for example, where there's not actually a stop loss, but it's the portfolio manager. If that ever changes, that's going to indicate a stop loss, and he'll suggest that. So it's just whatever that protocol is. Ideally, it's literally in your brokerage account. You don't have to think about it. It happens automatically. That's ideal. But if not, it should be very clear, very specific ahead of time, and you don't question it when it comes to pass if it does. So what does this do if you do this correctly? It's two things. Number one, if you make the sale of investments automatic and reasoned ahead of time, you'll never have to regret letting a loss get too big. And even better, when market corrections happen, which they will, they can really feel like what they are, which is opportunities. Many people, and we've all done this, who rely on their own abilities to determine when to sell, have a hard time viewing it this way when these corrections come around. Because if you think about it, if you're sitting on losing trades, you didn't have a stop loss in place and stocks drop, you now have two negatives. You have a losing trade that you're really hoping will go back up and less of what you want most when markets drop, which is what? Cash, liquid cash, right? To take advantage of the opportunity. And if you don't have cash, it's awful hard to see a market correction as an opportunity. But if you have those stop losses in place, then you can rest easy. Each time you get a notification from your brokerage account telling you that something was sold, you limited a loss, and you can now take full advantage of the opportunity when investments are on sale. And you have the cash in hand to do that, right? And best of all, you have peace of mind, which is worth a heck of a lot, especially in investing and especially during periods of volatility. If you take nothing else away from this, moving forward, you will be far more successful if you put yourself in a position to never have to make a decision about when to sell a stock again. I hope this has been helpful. And listen, if you have curiosity or questions about any of those particular stop losses that I mentioned, they're all outlined on our site. You can find more information there, but I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about this topic? Do you have stop losses in place? Have you implemented them in the past few years? And has it made a difference for you? Send me your feedback. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, until next time, this has been Survive and Thrive. Thank you.